It's been a rough season so far in Anaheim, but the Ducks are looking ahead to the trade deadline. Jason Hernandez of Locked On Anaheim Ducks joins us to talk about Trevor Zegras and company and what to expect in the second half of the season in Anaheim.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL Podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could join us today, and thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Jason Hernandez of Locked On Anaheim Ducks. And Jason, I know it hasn't been an easy season for the Ducks, but tell me a little bit about Trevor Zegras and company and what we can expect from this team in the second half.
A few things. First, welcome to our new sponsor, FanDuel.
Yes.
So got to welcome FanDuel with open arms. Yeah. Second, I personally think Troy Terry's the best player on that team, hence why he's the lone all-star representative. Love me some Troy Terry, birthday twin, what up? And now I can talk about Trevor Zegras for a hot second. Trevor Zegras is one of the most dynamic players on the Ducks, but he's still got a ways to go. He's still young.
Yeah.
He's not in his prime yet. Wait until he gets in his prime, then y'all better watch out. But for now, he's still in that sort of learning process, sort of not. And also, it doesn't help that Dallas Eakins doesn't know where to place him sometimes.
Yeah.
Center, wing, who knows?
What is the biggest area he needs to improve to get to that next level?
That's a great question. I think it would have to just be maybe, if anything, consistency. But that's true for a lot of young players, is they need to be on that consistent level for all 82 games. Because there's been maybe a handful of games, not many, but there's been a handful of games where he's pretty much disappeared from the ice virtually, or where he's getting just pummeled and can't seem to pick himself back up. But that will come with more experience. That consistency will come with more games. What doesn't help is that Dallas Eakins constantly moves him around still. Like, I expect him to be first line center every game, and he's not, which is still distressing. But hey, that's the Dallas Eakin era. What can I say?
Yeah, what can we say? Obviously, the Ducks are not making the playoffs this year. We expect them to be sellers at the trade deadline, which is now about 5-6 weeks away. Who might be available from this team, and what do you think they'd be looking for in return?
I'm glad you asked. So the number one player that will be looking to get picked up is John Klingberg, the defenseman for the Ducks. Now, John Klingberg could have had a longer deal, but instead bet on himself and opted for that 1-year deal for $7 million. Now, here's a couple of tricks to this. It was a full no trade until January 1st. Because it was a 1-year deal, it was that weird thing, that weird kind of hitch in the contract where that 10-team list came out January 1st. So it was a mid-season change from full no trade to a 10-team. I mean, we haven't heard of that happening too much in this league because usually it's season by season, not a certain date.
Right.
But John Klingberg bet on himself thinking that he was going to have a monster season and possibly get more money down the line because he was thinking, okay, I'm going to have a lot of goals this season, maybe score 20-something goals, have a lot of points, be a difference maker. He thought the Ducks would be better in the standings than they currently are. It has been the complete opposite to the point where I honestly don't know if the Ducks can get a first round pick from him anymore, which is really sad to say. He has to pick it up in the next 4 weeks in order for the Ducks to have a shot at a first-round pick for John Klingberg. And this is me being realistic. It'll take a lot for that to happen. What'll help is the Ducks will have to retain half his salary. I mean, they have to retain half anyway to stay above the cap floor. Yes, there's a cap floor. Don't forget, folks. All the teams talking about, oh, the salary cap. Hey, there's a cap floor too.
Yes.
They have to be above a certain threshold. So they have to retain half.
Anybody else who's on the block potentially coming up at the deadline?
There's a lot of players. Let's go down some of those names.
Okay.
First off, I've heard rumblings about, Kevin Shattenkirk, even though he's a bit older. He still has a lot on his contract left, but that's also 1 year to go. As far as Shattenkirk goes, there's not a whole lot of value there, but if they can get something of value for Shatty, that could be worth it. Adam Henrique. He does have 1 year left after this. But there's going to be a number of teams that could use Henrique's services for what it's worth. And the big name, John Gibson. Believe it or not, John Gibson, there has been rumblings. I won't go into specifics, but there are rumblings that John Gibson possibly be traded. The trick with John Gibson is he's got a few years left on his contract. In fact, he has got, I believe, 4 years left after this season at almost $6.5 million. So it's going to take a lot for a team to take on that contract. But at the same time, does have some value. And I think he would on a team that at least has a little bit of defense in front of him. John Gibson is seeing something like 40 plus shots almost every game this season. 75% of his starts have seen 39 plus shots against him. That's too much. Yeah, it's a stupid stat, but it goes without saying. John Gibson would certainly do well in a place where he actually has some defense. But again, the Ducks are going to have to eat some of that salary, which they can do because they have all the cap space in the world. But it would take a hefty package.
What kind of, other than draft picks, what else are the Ducks looking for? Are they looking for prospects, young players who could fill out the roster? And what positions, if any, are they concentrating on?
They need to concentrate on defense because defense has been their weak spot pretty much all season. When you have, when you have Dmitry Kulikov as your first pairing defenseman, things are bad for the Ducks. Not that he's a bad defenseman, just not a first pairing defenseman. He's never had that role in the NHL. And if he has, it was very brief because I remember Kulikov, way back when he was with Florida Panthers. And I don't recall him ever being a first pairing defenseman. I don't know if you remember him at all in that role.
Yeah, no, not as a first pair guy, no.
Yeah, he was typically second or third pair, and that was it. Especially when he was with, I think it was New Jersey.
Yeah,
where he was constantly second pairing, third pairing, like he could never crack first. So that's when it's bad, Gil. That's when losing Jimmy Drysdale for the season does not help matters at all. So defense is going to be the number one thing they're going to look at, but prospects, certainly they're going to look at as many prospects as possible. The scouts are really, really busy right now, looking at both the NHL and the AHL and juniors right now. They're looking to get prospects.
Makes sense, Jason. Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Well, the podcast can be found wherever podcasts are heard. It's free and available across all platforms. The show's Twitter is at @LO_Ducks. And my personal Twitter is at StimpyJD. If you follow my personal Twitter, you may have seen a bit of news recently, which I guess I could share here as well because it's all out. I am now the permanent public address for the Coachella Valley Firebirds.
Congratulations.
Just this month. So really exciting to be part of a new team out in the Valley. And you know what? Guys, they're a really fun bunch. And you have Dan Bilesma as the coach of the Firebirds. Yep.
Nice.
Just Dan Bilesma, legendary. And hey, the Seattle Kraken, they're doing pretty well this season. And it's gone down to the Firebirds. So if you're in SoCal, check out a Firebirds game. You'll hear my voice.
Excellent. Excellent. Jason, thanks so much for doing this. Always a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks a lot, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. To sign up at FanDuel.com/locked-on, FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads and player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. You can check out all the action on the NFC and AFC championship games, plus the latest NHL games as well. It's all on the app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, hockey fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.